Has anyone claimed it? Let us know if it was you. Jurasov, would you do the honors of introducing these two players?
Most certainly, ladies and gentlemen. We are here on Cornwall City in game number 4 of this best of 5 Heart of the Swarm undercard match, featuring 2 of the UK's coolest up-and-coming talents who have shown us a real slugfest so far, spawning in the 9 o'clock position as the Teal Terran this time around. We have, representing Eli, it is LemonyTang. He's going to be facing off against the Red Zerg player, who is 2-1 up in this best of 5 series. It is match point in his favor. But can he convert? He represents Roar Gaming. We've seen some very entertaining games come out of him so far. It is Jamesykins.
Now, Jurasar, this map is one of the funkiest maps in the beta. Do you know why? Because there is a base in your base.
That's true. This is basically a 2v2 map. I played like 2v2 map with a shared ramp.
That is basically what they've done. They're just like, yeah, let's do that.
And because there's a base in your base, what would you expect a Zerg opponent to do, Maddles? Of course, it's a fantastic opportunity to go hatch first. Doesn't look like it's about to happen, though.
It doesn't. It was a very early pull. We've got those 6 Zerglings coming out, and I can see the logic here. Jamesykins, he's a game up. He needs 1 game to win this series. If he just runs in with those Zerglings, thinking that perhaps his opponent would go for a greedy command center first because of the base in your base, it could do some damage. The SCV is gonna scout these Zerglings though coming across, and of course this now gives LemonyTang as much time as he could possibly hope to defend this. A second barracks coming down here in the ramp, and well,
he needs more than that though. There's still a gap. Get one down. There we go. It looks like he's gonna... Excellent. So bunker going down as well, and I suspect LemonyTang should be fine. If, for example, one of the barracks or the bunker only just went down, there's a chance that 6 Zerglings can do more damage than the SCVs do while building it. But in this particular case, it looks like he should be okay. The first Marine is now out and is plugging away at those Zerglings. Jamesykins will not be able to end the game at this early stage. We will go into a significantly longer game. And that puts Jamesykins in a position where he really doesn't want to have to be right now. He wants to expand as quickly as he possibly can, but at the same time, because the second barracks has gone down, also needs to be very wary of some sort of Marine SCV all-in follow-up from LemonyTang.
He does indeed, and when you've got those 2 barracks down, you know that the counter-attack is always going to be a possibility, but more so, the worker count. 14 to 10. Only 10 drones out right now. Those 11 Zerglings that are on the field, their days of being able to do anything are going to be few and far between, because it's not going to be until a lot later that anything is going to be able to be done by those with that wall off and bunker there. So as a result, Charissa, I would definitely say LemonyTang is in a nice spot. It's just up to him whether he wants to go for a 1-base play or if he decides to instead just macro up. And it seems by the command center, macro up is his option.
Yeah, and I really like this decision from LemonyTang, because Jamesykins has seen 2 barracks and a bunker go down at the wall, obviously to defend against the early pull. Now, because he's seen that, he needs to be a little bit wary of some sort of follow-up that might result in him getting all in. But he doesn't know for sure if that's going to happen until he scouts the command center, which luckily he does right now with that Overlord. He needed to get that information in. He needed to know that LemonyTang was expanding behind this, and maybe, just maybe, we could see a quick macro hatch or maybe even a sneaky third come in from Jamesykins here, depending on how far he feels he's behind.
Well, a sneaky third is one thing you could try to do. Obviously, we have seen this rock tower get taken out by Jamesykins, trying to delay that, but again, it's only delaying a third a little bit, and when your opponent's already economically ahead, you don't have to worry too much. And what I love from LemonyTang, and I use that word very infrequently, is that he's got that second bunker coming up because he knows his opponent's behind. He knows his opponent is very happy to go for a very aggressive style. And I would be concerned about my opponent just going for some kind of roach bling all-in and just trying to knock down that wall if I've been too greedy behind it. So I think playing very defensively, turtling up, getting some good tech, taking your advantage is the right thing to do for the Terran in this situation.
That could actually happen, and as you notice, LemonyTang just scanning Jamesykins, and he scanned Jamesykins basically about 10 seconds after Jamesykins got 50 gas in the bank. So had he put down a stupidly fast Baneling Nest, that would have been the perfect time for LemonyTang to scan and see it. As it stands though, as soon as the scan expires, Jamesykins immediately puts up his lair, and he's taking his third base as well. So it looks like Jamesykins has not told LemonyTang. There's nothing to suggest that he's going for super aggression at the moment. LemonyTang scanned and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but Jamesykins instead is going to be macroing behind it.
And I mean, he's got a lot to catch up. He's only just now 4 workers ahead, but when you factor mules in, he's behind economically. We've got to look at just how much forces are coming out for the Terran right now. He's got Hellions on their way. He's got the Tech Lab coming down on one of the other factories as well. So could be going for a quick Blue Flame harassment. I'm waiting to see what comes out. And yep, there we go. Blue Flame is starting to get researched. So I think that plays into LemonyTang's style. He's loved his Hellion harass. He's seen that Jamesykins hasn't dealt with it that effectively throughout the series. And he knows he's economically ahead. So if he can really hammer home the point that I've got the better economy this game by killing a few drones with Blue Flame Hellions, I think that will be nothing but good for him.
Well, here's the problem that we have at the moment. LemonyTang, in my opinion, is doing this as I don't want to say a stroke of genius or anything like that, but it's the logical thing for him to do. He spent so much of Game 2 harassing Jamesykins, and as we saw, Jamesykins was susceptible to Hellion harassment for the entire game. There wasn't really a point, aside from we could say it wasn't being cost effective. If we take a look at game number 3, yes, okay, there wasn't that much more done, but after that initial roach push, LemonyTang was still getting drones killed by Hellions. It's almost as though Jamesykins, when it comes to defending against these Hellion pushes, effectively has his head in the sand, and he has to be so careful that LemonyTang doesn't just completely take him out with one trick here and just level the series. He wants to be able to preserve his advantage going into game number 5. The problem he has, though, is that I just don't think he's defending adequately against this.
Jorasa, the double hatch went down at the ramp trying to wall off, but there was a small gap and the Hellions have managed to make their way through. And of course, Jamesykins, he saw this coming. He sent the Overlord in at the perfect time. He saw the multiple factories. He saw the big group of Hellions, and he saw the Tech Lab on the factory researching something. So he threw down those hatcheries trying to wall off, but look at this. So much damage being done. And without that wall off, there's going to be a lot of Pride drones tonight.
Oh man, and this is after that early pull as well. This could not have come at a worse time. He's actually letting the hatches finish from what I can see here, and there's actually quite a big gap there at the top. I'm surprised he didn't notice that gap was existing. Obviously a little bit of a panic maneuver, but now we have a massive problem. 18 drones versus 36 workers. He has got the Spire down, but he doesn't have anything mining, nowhere close to enough to get Mutalisks in large enough numbers to cause a decent upset. 18 workers killed so far, so I guess LemonyTang must be back in his base going, right, well, that's 194 to go.
Indeed it is. Looking here for LemonyTang, he's seen the Spire, he knows what's coming, he knows what he needs to do. The only real threat to him is if some Mutas were coming out, of course. They haven't been started. There's not the money for it. We've got Jamesykins trying to utilize these Speedlings as best he can, trying to make sure that there's no third base. I think if Jamesykins saw the third base, then he would have just been like, no, I'm way too far behind. But with the one macro hatch, with this wall off being built, just to try and prevent those Hellions, maybe Jamesykins can hold on a bit longer. But when you're sitting there at a good, 10 workers behind the Terran player at the 12-minute mark, you know you're not going to have too much fun. These Zerglings getting roasted in the middle as well, Jorasar. This is pretty tough for Jamesykins.
And I want to say that LemonyTang is going towards a third base right now. I'd like to see him do that, because at the end of the day, if you're going up the ramp and you see it, not another gap, for goodness sake, the same thing happening twice in a row here. And these drones at the natural expansion are going to be completely and utterly farmed. There is nothing to defend them. LemonyTang must have an inkling. He must go, wait, you had enough minerals for 2 hatcheries to try and block me off, and you didn't really have an army to defend against my Hellions. Where did your money go? And he can actually see the edge of the creep on the third base as well, so I'm really surprised he hasn't attempted to go in and harass the third. But that said, he seems to be doing a fairly good job on the natural. 31 workers killed to 2 so far in this game, and LemonyTang is more than double the supply of his Zerg opponent.
At the end of the day, why go for the third when you can get the natural and main base? You could poke up. If you see the wall-offs complete, you run down to the third. But I think getting in there for LemonyTang was absolutely perfect for him. And even though he knows the third base is there, he's so comfortably ahead right now economically. He's ahead by tech. He knows that there's the potential of a couple of mutas, but we see 3 out, 2 missile turrets and a Widow Mine at the main base are about to kill them. The Widow Mine, is it going to get the connection? No, luckily the mutas are pulled back just in time, but then they're pulled straight into Thors. Oh no, those poor Mutalisks.
Jamesykins just can't get a break this game, Mattles. Everywhere he turns, he's been getting shut down. That's really been the name of this game so far. He started with the early pull, it got scouted, LemonyTang put down those racks in a good location. Jamesykins couldn't afford to be completely comfortable just in case there was a 2 racks follow-up. LemonyTang correctly chose to macro up behind it. Jamesykins tried to go for 2 additional hatcheries as we predicted, but then LemonyTang waltzes in once again with the Hellions, which we've been saying time and time again that Jamesykins needs to defend against better. He's 2-1 up in this best-of-5 series, and he has the potential to close it up here, but so far in this game, he's just been shut down so much, it's looking impossible.
Jorasa, a Thor train is about to come into Jamesykins station, and it is not looking to pick up passengers. The Watchtower, it has revealed that nothing is a threat. We can see that this Terran army is likely just to march forward and win the game right here. We do have a final mass of units trying to come out for Jamesykins. He's getting 4 Roaches and 18 Zerglings to deal with 7 Hellbats, 2 Hellions, 8 Thors, and 6 Marines.
I'd say that's
as well as a Widow Mine.
Favor.
It's just slightly. I mean,
just
I know Zerg are strong, generally speaking, but I don't think even Zerg is going to be able to hold this off. The third
Where's
base...
the Fungal when you need one?
Where's the Fungal, bro?
Take out the rock tower! Do it! Oh god, the drones! Run! I'm actually rooting for them now. Run! Okay, only a couple of them going down there, and it looks like the hatchery is going to get taken out instead of the watchtower. Doesn't really matter either way. Everything getting obliterated at the third base. 168 supply to 108. And, the only thing I would say is that if LemonyTang just completely wants to guarantee he's winning the game with this push, would it be nice to see a couple of SCVs as well with the Thors, but I suspect this might be enough anyway. More Battle Hellions joining the fray here. The Roaches getting pushed back, but the Thor numbers are just too great. The Roaches trying to make a stand, but LemonyTang at the end of the day, this force is too big, and Jamesykins might be able to get a counterattack going or something like that, but as long as LemonyTang just turns around and takes out the base of Jamesykins and redirects his rally points, there is no way Jamesykins can get any space here.
There's not indeed. The Thors are starting to fall to the Roaches. Of course, mass Roach is good against Thor if they focus down, but there's just too many and too few Roaches, and I think that is the big problem. I mean, that push, it knocked out a third base, it knocked out a few more workers. Of course, these Roaches are going to go for the counterattack, and it looks like LemonyTang's just happy to leave them, to be honest, because, hey, I've got some tanks here, I can knock those out fairly happily and go for the counter-aggression.
Exactly, and it's just... Unfortunately, this is probably going to be the final push of the game, barring some miracle happening from our Zerg player here. LemonyTang looking poised to level the series up at 2-all, which means we will go into a deciding game number 5. Moving up the ramp now. He's being a little bit indecisive with his direction of movement here. I feel like Jamesykins trying to pull him down the bottom of the ramp. He's trying to sandwich it from both sides here, but the Thors are doing so much damage and the Roach numbers simply aren't high enough. Jamesykins down to under 80 supply. LemonyTang still at a healthy 135. Third base to boot as well, and I fear this is going to be it.
I think it will be. There are still 5 Thors marching forward. 5 Thors against what is 10 Roaches. That should go in the Thor's favor. Even the drone's getting pulled, so maybe by some miracle Jamesykins will hold off this push, but even if he does, he's still so far behind that you just aren't going to have anything else there. There's still 49 workers, but as we can see, massive oversaturation at the natural base. That's the big problem. The final Thor does die. And now, the one thing I wanted to note a little bit earlier, Jorasa, was remember the push into the third. Yeah. That rock tower. There was a lot of Thors there. I know it's a tiny thing, but if LemonyTang had knocked out that rock tower while he was retreating towards the main of Jamesykins, he would have delayed that third base for, even though it hasn't attempted to get taken, even if nothing happened after that, if that went down, the third base couldn't have been taken by Jamesykins, and it would have, in my opinion, assured LemonyTang's victory.
No, that's a great point. Even if Jamesykins decided to try and get back into this game by attempting to macro up behind, it would have taken him so much longer. It looks like that might not matter, as you correctly said. But at the same time, that would have been a really nice touch, that attack. I completely agree. And now we have some roaches chasing back this army, but Jamesykins just doesn't have enough stuff here to chase this back effectively. And even though the roaches can kite those battle hellions to an extent, what's coming behind them in the form of Thors and tanks is going to be way too much for him to handle.
It will be. I like the switch into tanks, actually. I think it's a very good read from LemonyTang that my opponent's only making roaches to defend this. If I get some tanks out, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be completely A-okay. So with this push coming forward, obviously the Hellbats, while they won't do much damage against the roaches, really, they only do 20 damage a hit, they can soak up quite a lot of damage. And that's their real aim right now. The tanks leapfrogging their way forward. This, I've said it 3 times now, so I'm not actually going to say it's the last stand of Jamesykins, but this is really, it's good defense by the Zerg player, is all I can say.
Well, another thing to note is that even though LemonyTang is so far ahead, he's been slow and methodical about it. There are points in this game where he might have just been able to 1A and win. He hasn't really done that too much. He's been sitting back, slowly leapfrogging his tanks forward. Even if he didn't have them in siege mode, he could have risked just moving up Jamesykins' ramp and 1Aing unsieged, for example, and that might have still won him the battle. Who knows? But he's not doing that. He's playing it calm. He's playing very, very collected here, slowly moving the tanks forward to isolate the roaches on the ramp. Then he'll go in and pick apart this third base, which he's going to do right now. The roaches are going to come in for a flank on the tanks, but about half of them are going to go down in the process. Good positioning on the roaches, but is it going to be enough? The third base completely devoid of workers now, and the Thors are going to move in and clean up.
The third base is dead and gone. The Thors, as you said, happily there still. One has been morphed into high-impact payload. I'm not quite sure why, just felt like it. It looks cool. Meanwhile, the roaches are still being massed, and of course, with only one tank there, mass roach will actually be okay. And Jamesykins did a great job flanking that tank line and knocking those out, and may have bought himself a little bit more time in this game. But as we can see, LemonyTang just still has a lot of stuff out. He's streaming reinforcements over. An additional 3 tanks just joined his whole army, and I think with that, as long as he doesn't leave it, he's only got to march up that ramp, and he's going to be A-okay.
Now, I don't want to talk good of a bad thing here, because at the end of the day, LemonyTang losing all of those tanks earlier was just unbelievably bad. Like, there's no getting around that. But at the end, he's just doing so unbelievably well that it didn't even matter. And the remaining 3 tanks joining the army earns him the GG, which means he ties up this best-of-5 series 2-all, and we get to go into the final deciding